They disinherited me, laughed, and threw my grandfather's life work in the trash. This is a family betrayal story that turns into surgical revenge and justice. One of those unforgettable revenge stories where the person they broke comes back owning the debt and their future. My mother looked me dead in the eye and told me she gave my grandfather's millions to my sister because she deserved it more. She thought she left me with nothing, but she didn't realize the old box of notes I kept was worth more than the money she stole. I remember the day my life split into two distinct timelines, before the betrayal and after. It was a rainy Tuesday in Seattle, the kind of gray that seeps into your bones and makes you feel like the sun has given up on the world. We were sitting in the mahogany-paneled office of Mr. Henderson, my grandfather's longtime attorney. The air smelled of old leather and tension. My grandfather, Silas Cox, had been a brilliant man. He was a pioneer in early biomedical research, a man who saw patterns in biology where others saw chaos. I was the only one in the family who understood him. While my sister, Chloe, was busy trying to become a social media influencer, and my mother, Linda, was busy spending money she hadn't earned on lunches she didn't eat, I was in the lab with Grandpa. I held the pipettes. I ran the centrifuges. I listened to his theories about cellular regeneration. He had promised me, explicitly and repeatedly, that his estate would fund my own research. I had just been accepted into a prestigious PhD program for bioengineering. The tuition was astronomical, and the research grant I needed to launch my startup was dependent on the seed capital he had set aside for me. Mr. Henderson cleared his throat, looking uncomfortable. He adjusted his glasses and looked at my mother, then at me. "I am afraid," he said, his voice trembling slightly, "that the structure of the trust was altered 6 months ago. Due to your grandfather's declining mental state in his final weeks, power of attorney was granted to your mother. The specific allocation for Aubrey's research was moved into the General Family Fund, which is now under the sole discretion of Linda Cox." I felt the blood drain from my face. I looked at my mother. She was wearing a black dress that cost more than my car, dabbing at dry eyes with a silk handkerchief. She didn't look sad. She looked triumphant. "Mom," I whispered, "that money is for the lab. Grandpa and I spent 5 years planning this. You know that." Linda turned to me, her expression hardening into that familiar mask of cold indifference. "Aubrey, stop being selfish," she said, her voice smooth and venomous. "Chloe needs a start in life. You have your books and your little science experiments. You're smart. You'll figure it out. Chloe isn't like you. She needs security. She needs the capital to maintain our standing in the community. I have decided that the funds are better suited to support her lifestyle brand. She deserves it more." I looked at Chloe. She was checking her reflection in her phone screen, barely paying attention. She offered me a pitying smile. "Sorry, Aub," she said, popping her gum, "but my brand is really taking off. I need a warehouse for the merch." I walked out of that office with $0 to my name. My mother had intercepted $5 million intended to cure degenerative diseases and handed it to a girl whose biggest ambition was to be verified on Instagram. But before I left my grandfather's house for the last time, while my mother was already measuring the windows for new drapes, I went into his study. They were tossing things into trash bags, old clothes, books, papers. To them, it was junk. I saw a battered cardboard box near the recycling bin. It was labeled SC Protocols, 1998-2003. I knew what was inside. It was his handwritten journals, his failures, his scribbles, the raw data of a mind that was decades ahead of its time. I took the box. My mother saw me holding it as I walked to the door. "Taking trash, Aubrey?" she sneered. How fitting. I didn't say a word. I just gripped that box until my knuckles turned white, walked to my rusted sedan and drove away. That was the last time I spoke to them for 5 years. The first year was hell. There is no other way to describe it. I had to decline the PhD offer because I couldn't afford the tuition without the grant. I was homeless for 3 weeks, sleeping in the back seat of my car in a Walmart parking lot, using the flashlight on my phone to read Grandpa's journals. I eventually found a job as a night shift janitor at a tech incubator. It was humiliating, but it was strategic. During the day, I worked as a waitress to pay for a studio apartment the size of a closet. At night, I cleaned the floors of labs where people with half my talent were failing to innovate. But in the early hours of the morning, between 3 and 5 a.m., I used the equipment. I knew the security guard, an old man named Harlan. I brought him coffee and sandwiches, and he looked the other way. I wasn't starting from scratch. That was the secret. My mother thought she had cut off my resources, but the money was just fuel. The engine was in the box. Grandpa had solved a problem regarding synthetic protein folding back in 2001, but he never published it because the computing power didn't exist to verify it. I had the computing power now. I spent 6 months coding a simulation based on his notes. When I finally ran the program, I held my breath. If this failed, I was just a janitor with a delusion. If it worked, I held the key to accelerating wound healing by 300%. The screen flashed green. Match confirmed. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I sat on the cold linoleum floor of that lab, smelling of bleach and floor wax, and I smiled. The next day, I cornered the CEO of the incubator while I was mopping the hallway. I wasn't wearing a suit. I was wearing a gray jumpsuit with my name patch, Aubrey, stitched on the breast pocket. "Excuse me, Mr. Vance," I said. He tried to step around me. Excuse me, he muttered, clearly annoyed that the help was speaking to him. "I have a patentable molecule that stabilizes rapid tissue regeneration, and I need $50,000 for a prototype run," I said, blocking his path. He stopped. He looked at me, really looked at me for the first time. "You're the cleaner," he said. "I am, but I'm also Silas Cox's granddaughter, and I have his research." 10 minutes later, I was in his office. 1 hour later, I had a check. 6 months later, I had my own lab. 3 years later, my company, Aetherus Bio, went public. The IPO was one of the most successful in biotech history. My net worth skyrocketed overnight. I was on the cover of magazines. I was the keynote speaker at conferences in Geneva and Tokyo. I bought a penthouse overlooking the city that had once rained on me while I slept in my car. But I never reached out to my family. I had them blocked on everything. I hired a team of lawyers specifically to insulate me from them. I knew, logically, that they must have seen my success. It was impossible to miss. But I also knew my mother. Her pride was a fortress. She would rather starve than admit she was wrong. And as it turned out, starving was becoming a real possibility. While I was building an empire, my mother and sister were dismantling a legacy. I didn't need to guess what they were doing. I hired a forensic accountant to keep tabs on them. It wasn't obsession, it was risk management. I needed to know if they were going to come for my company. The reports were a tragic comedy of errors. Chloe's lifestyle brand, CloGlow, had launched with a massive party that cost nearly $500,000. The product, cheaply made skincare imported from a questionable factory, caused allergic reactions. The lawsuits drained another $1 million. Instead of cutting losses, my mother doubled down. She insisted that appearances were everything. She bought a larger estate in the hills to prove they were still wealthy. She leased luxury cars. She funded Chloe's attempt at a pop music career, which resulted in one music video that got 12,000 views, mostly from bots. They burned through the $5 million in 3 years. Then came the loans. My mother remortgaged the house. Then she took out business lines of credit against shell companies that had no revenue. She maxed out credit cards with limits that could buy a small island. By the 5th year, the walls were closing in. The accountant sent me a notification on a Tuesday, the same kind of rainy Tuesday as the day I was disinherited. Subject: Cox Estate insolvency. The report detailed that the bank was moving to foreclose on their estate. They had $3 million in outstanding debt, split between predatory lenders, banks, and private equity firms. They were drowning. I sat in my office, surrounded by glass and chrome, looking at the rain. I thought about the box of notes. I thought about the way my mother looked at me when she called me selfish. I picked up the phone and called my personal attorney, David. "David," I said, "I want to make a purchase." "Real estate?" he asked. "Debt," I answered. "I want to buy the debt of the Cox estate. All of it. The mortgages, the credit lines, the personal loans. I want to be the sole creditor." "That's a toxic asset, Aubrey," David warned. "You won't get your money back." "I'm not buying it for the return on investment, David. I'm buying it for the leverage." Use a shell company. Call it Phoenix Holdings. Do not let my name appear on any paperwork until the ink is dry. It took 2 weeks. I spent $3.2 million buying my mother's bad decisions. I now owned the roof over her head, the car she drove, and the very clothes on her back. Then I waited. I didn't have to wait long. The foreclosure notices were sent out by Phoenix Holdings, but with a caveat. A meeting was requested to discuss restructuring. My mother, desperate and cornered, agreed to meet the representative of Phoenix Holdings at the grand charity gala for the Children's Hospital. She didn't know the representative was me. She just knew that this mysterious company held her life in its hands. The gala was the social event of the season. Everyone who was anyone was there. I arrived late, wearing a gown that looked like it was woven from starlight, diamonds dripping from my ears. The photographers went wild when I stepped onto the red carpet. The flashes were blinding. I walked into the ballroom and spotted them immediately. They looked haggard. My mother was wearing a dress I recognized from 5 years ago, but it looked tired now. Chloe looked frantic, scanning the room for someone to impress. They were holding champagne flutes like lifelines. I walked straight toward them. The crowd parted for me. I was the billionaire CEO of Aetherus Bio. They were the washed-up socialites on the brink of ruin. When I stopped in front of them, my mother dropped her glass. It shattered on the marble floor, the sound echoing through the suddenly silent room. "Aubrey," she whispered. "Hello, Mother. Hello, Chloe." You look amazing," Chloe stammered, her eyes wide with jealousy and fear. I didn't answer her. I just looked at my mother. "I hear you're in a bit of trouble," I said, my voice calm, projecting just enough for the surrounding tables to hear. My mother composed herself. She straightened her spine, trying to summon that old arrogance. "We are fine, Aubrey. Just a temporary liquidity issue. I'm surprised to see you here. I assume you're doing well?" "I'm doing very well, Mother. My company just cured a form of degenerative blindness. The stock is up 40%. My mother's eyes glittered. I could see the gears turning. She saw a lifeline. She saw her daughter, the billionaire, standing in front of her. She thought she could charm me. She thought blood was thicker than the ink on a bank statement. "Aubrey, darling," she said, stepping over the broken glass to reach for my hand. "I am so proud of you. I always knew you had it in you. That tough love, it worked, didn't it? I pushed you because I knew you needed to fight for your success." I pulled my hand away as if she were contagious. "Tough love?" I asked. "You stole my inheritance. You threw me to the wolves." "I did what I thought was best," she hissed, her voice dropping to a whisper. "And look at you. You're rich. And we are family. Family helps each other. Actually, it's serendipitous that we ran into each other. We're having a small issue with a predatory holding company. If you could perhaps loan us the funds to clear it, just until Chloe's brand relaunches." I laughed. It was a cold, sharp sound. "You want me to pay off Phoenix Holdings?" I asked. "Yes," she said, relieved. "Exactly. They are threatening to take the house, your grandfather's house, Aubrey. You wouldn't let them take Grandpa's house, would you?" I took a step closer to her. "You don't understand, Mother. You're meeting with Phoenix Holdings right now." She blinked, confused. "What?" "I am Phoenix Holdings," I said. The color drained from her face faster than it had in the lawyer's office 5 years ago. "I bought your debt, Mother, every cent of it. I own your mortgage. I own your credit card debt. I own the loan on Chloe's Porsche. I bought it all 2 weeks ago." My mother's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. You own it? So you can forgive it? Aubrey, please, you have so much money. This is nothing to you. Just write it off. We're your family." I looked her dead in the eye, channeling every ounce of pain, hunger, and humiliation I had felt for 5 years. "I remember you telling me that Chloe deserved the money more," I said. "You told me I had my notes, and I would figure it out. Well, I did figure it out. I used Grandpa's notes, the ones you were going to throw in the trash, to build this fortune." "Aubrey, please," Chloe cried out, grabbing my arm. "I'm sorry, I was young, I didn't know." I gently removed her hand. "I'm not going to forgive the debt," I said softly. My mother looked like she was going to faint. "Then what are you going to do?" "I'm going to do exactly what a bank would do. I'm calling in the loan. You have 30 days to pay the full amount of $3.2 million, or I will initiate foreclosure proceedings and seize all assets." "You can't do that," my mother shrieked, forgetting the crowd. "You can't evict your own mother." "You evicted me first," I reminded her. "You left me with nothing. You stole the money that was meant to change the world and spent it on vanity. You proved that you can't be trusted with capital." I turned to walk away, but I stopped and looked back over my shoulder. "Oh, and Mother?" She looked up, tears streaming down her face, ruining her makeup. "You were right about one thing. You said you gave the money to Chloe because she needed it more. You were right. She lacks the talent, the drive, and the intelligence to survive without a handout. I didn't need the money. I had the brilliance. You can steal cash, Mother, but you can never steal that." I walked out of the ballroom. I didn't look back. The next month was a whirlwind of legal proceedings. My mother tried to sue, claiming I had manipulated the purchase, but my lawyers were sharks. Everything was legal. Everything was ironclad. On the 31st day, the sheriff arrived at the estate. I didn't go to watch. I didn't need to see them dragging their Louis Vuitton bags out to a rental van. I had seen enough. Instead, I went to the cemetery. I stood in front of my grandfather's grave. It was a simple stone, just like he wanted. The rain had stopped and the sun was breaking through the clouds, casting long golden rays across the grass. I placed a copy of my first published scientific paper on the grave. It was dedicated to him. "We did it, Grandpa," I whispered. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from my mother, a long, rambling wall of text alternating between begging and cursing me. She was asking for money for a motel. She said they had nowhere to go. I looked at the message. I thought about the girl sleeping in the Walmart parking lot. I thought about the janitor scrubbing floors. I thought about the scientist who changed the world. I didn't reply. I blocked the number. Justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's simply the act of correcting the balance. My mother and sister wanted a life of luxury they didn't earn. They got 5 years of it. Now they have to do what I did. They have to start from scratch. But unlike me, they don't have the box of notes. They don't have the vision, and they certainly don't have the forgiveness of the daughter they betrayed. I walked back to my car, a sleek electric vehicle that I had designed myself. I had a meeting with my research team in an hour. We were on the verge of another breakthrough, something that could help regenerate damaged nerve tissue. There was work to do. I drove away, leaving the ghosts of my past behind me, finally, fully, and completely free. They say success is the best revenge. I disagree. Owning the debt of the people who tried to destroy you, that is the best revenge, and business is booming.